legally speaking, with me, Tarun Nangia. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is, in a sense, spearheading the launch of VIVAD se VISHWAS scheme, which is a scheme of the Income Tax Department, where you are looking forward to faster disposal of tax disputes. This is done to instill confidence in the industry and the businessmen that the government stands by you, and the government has full intention to ensure faster disposal of disputes. And I have somebody who understands this topic very well, Mr. Rakesh Nangia, who's chairman of Nangia Anderson, joins us today on the show. Good to see you, Mr. Nangia, and looking forward to an interesting half-an-hour show on this topic with you.
Thank you, Tarun.
So at the outset, let me request you to give me in a couple of minutes, explain the intention of the government behind this scheme and the finance minister's initiative, why she's come out with this VIVAD se VISHWAS scheme, which will be implemented from October 1, 2024. Over to you.
Thank you, Tarun. So, Tarun, there's a historical background of the current scheme. For the sake of brevity, I'll be using the word VSV scheme. And you see the name VISHWAS. It's very well simply trying to say how we are going to solve the dispute resolution, if you translate it to English, actually. And this scheme came up at a very apt time. Same government, in 2020, has brought this scheme, which we'll call as VSV scheme number 101. And the scheme was extremely successful. It really met the government objective. It raised a good amount of taxes for the government. It settled a good scores of disputes at the various forums. And encouraged by the result of the first scheme, the government came out with the second scheme, which is VSV scheme. And we call it, for the sake of easy, we say VS scheme 2, basically. And the first scheme, again, for government got motivated, and that was the reason to have 2024. And the objective was to further reduce the litigation and the backlog and simplify tax dispute resolution. In fact, the very important part is this: it aligns with the government larger policy in terms of fostering tax-friendly environment, reducing uncertainty for the purpose of taxpayer. If you see historically, the government has been touching this point very again and again, and they believe the money which is stuck up is immensely huge, actually. And the challenge is this: everybody wants to resolve it, and SSC wants to resolve it, put an end to the dispute. The government wants to collect the money, and the most important is to give a certainty to it, a certainty and an end to it, basically this way or that way. And because of the courts, because of the structure of the government and the way that we are there, the appeal gets delayed in the process, and the hierarchy of the appeals you go through. So that takes its own time. So if you see that resolution of the dispute, timely is the essence, actually. If you do not do that, the uncertainty which haunts you, it actually goes on for years and years for the businesses, for the corporates, making provisions, taking opinions, whether the dispute is likely to be in favor, not in favor, whether there will be demand, whether there will be contingent liability, whether there will be cash liability coming up, what will be the impact on your balance sheets, everything basically, it haunts you actually. On this basis, the government thought of let's introduce a scheme, VSV scheme 2, and because it was the VSV 1 was actually very, very successful scheme basically. And as I said I must share with you very important relevant part. This is a VISHWAS se VIVAD scheme. It is not an amnesty scheme. It does not give you immunity, amnesty, you are not going to pay the taxes. No. Amnesty scheme in the past, Supreme Court has upheld it against the government. You can't have an amnesty scheme and favor the taxpayers who are willing to pay the taxes later on at a lower rate. So there was a challenge, even the Supreme Court had challenged this scheme in the past. The government in the new avatar brought it, VSV scheme. So what I'm trying to tell you is this: please, everybody, this should be clear in our mind. This is not an amnesty. This is asking you to settle the dispute. This is asking you a resolution scheme, actually, and clarify. If you avail the scheme, this precedence value core the principal issues only. So the issue which you have in that's only gets settled. It does not mean this issue coming later on will not be litigated by either party. It's only for that year, limited period. I'm setting this issue. I'm paying the taxes with the government as per the scheme. But the next year, this issue may come back again because the first issue has been settled. It has not been resolved. It has not been finally adjudicated. The objective was to end the litigation, collect money at where possibly there, and give a peace and certainty to the taxpayer. So this is the most important matter that we need to do that. And I need to add one more important thing. It is at a very forum, the entire landscape of litigation, which is covered. So it is covered appeals, writs, petitions before various appellate authorities, including Supreme Court, including High Court. It covers the dispute between DRP, Dispute Resolution Panel, revision petition before the Commission of Income Tax. So what is it? It is covering the large landscape of dispute at various forums, which gets settled in VSV 2, which was also there in VSV 1. So the taxpayer can, when your scheme is there, you can take a conscious decision. What is the objective? And you can compare it. If I go on the dispute, this is my result. If I settle the dispute and seeing my litigation costs, seeing my uncertainty, seeing the chances of losing, and everything, you bundle up everything, and you can rationally come to a conclusion whether I need to settle it or whether I need to litigate it, whether I want a peace of mind or whether I'm willing to fight it. All depends on a host of reason and legal professionals to come and guide you on that matter. So the scheme has been extremely successful in the past. I'll share you some facts at the later part right now. And it has been brought again, and I'm repeating it for the sake of my audience here. It is not an amnesty scheme. You are paying taxes at a reduced basis, and I'll share you as we go forward what is the level of taxes you pay.
Today in the Supreme Court, a dispute of a mere 1.5 lakhs came, and the Supreme Court said that you must be spending more on your lawyer's fees than you can recover in taxes. So I'm not talking even of the large disputes, even very small disputes end up in the Supreme Court. So do you feel the VIVAD se VISHWAS scheme will ensure that large amounts in dispute as well as small amounts both have an equal opportunity to get settled? You may have amount in dispute of say 800 crores, 900 crores. At the same time, the amount in dispute may be 50 lakhs. Where are we heading with this scheme from October 1, 2024?
So they're very interesting. Again, as close 15 minutes back, I'm going to share you a notice which has been issued in Supreme Court. Interesting, I'm going to share with you. What happens, government has made a threshold now. All the small litigation sorted out at a first level, sorted out at a tribunal level, High Court, certain level, Supreme Court. If your tax demand is less than 6 crore, Supreme Court is not going to hear the case. You will get the finality at the High Court level. So a threshold will be further enhanced by the government in the recent past. Highest is 6 crore for Supreme Court. So, and in India, whole system, the small appeals are big in number. Legal appeals are there, but small in number, they are huge impact. But number of SSC which goes on the small appeals are huge in number. And to unclog the whole litigation system, actually, this threshold was brought. So the government has introduced this, has increased the threshold. Government has done it again and again. If you see, they started what you rightly said, it, there was no threshold. They gave it a single threshold, second, third, fourth, and it's increasing it. And in this process, you'll find the maximum number of small, frivolous or short matters, which are not worthwhile for Supreme Court to take care into that account, right? So they get disposed of in one stroke. So just what I was reading a few minutes back, actually, Supreme, there's a hearing before the Chief Justice of India, where these small appeals are being filed, and they would have decided normally as a past what they do it. If you are not, if you're under the threshold, there the last judgment is final. The Supreme Court will not hear those cases. This does not mean these appeals are settled legally. This simply said these are too small an appeal to be taken forward for such a litigation cycle. And by the time you reach Supreme Court, it can go from 5 years to 7, 10 years, depending on that. Put a lid on it. Not going to hear it is a smaller financial impact. And yet, High Court is a very good forum to discuss, decide majority of the cases. Let the High Court decide. If the High Court level is lower, ITT will be there basically. So a whole limit has been given till the highest ceiling going up to 6 crore. And the case is fixed for tomorrow. The appeal is fixed for tomorrow. So I just saw the notice has come. So there would.
But thank you for sharing. We will like to take up this on our next show and invite you along with others to speak on this. Because I think finally, because Supreme Court can't be burdened with small amount matters. I mean, that's not what the Supreme Court is for. It's for deciding constitutional issues rather than these petty amounts in dispute. As you said, better off settled at the High Court level. And that is what the Supreme Court intends to do. I also want to ask you a reverse question that do a lot of people wait for VIVAD se VISHWAS kind of schemes and they are non-compliant before deliberately and then wait for this to comply?
See, I will say not necessarily, because no one knows it's going to come. But what was basically the objective with the government changing it is an amnesty scheme. Amnesty people have a habit of waiting and say, you pay a little bit of tax, you get it. So amnesty practically has been denounced completely, basically by the court, by the Supreme Court. And here there's a compromise, as I said it. You pay me part, I'll waive you the interest, I'll waive you the penalty, I'll collect so much of the taxes, which I will share you the numbers like that. And so everybody's happy. The litigation stops, the government gets the money, I get a waiver, right? And you unclog the system. Everybody's winner here in this case. And that is a basic objective, basically, rather than litigating and waiting for amnesty. You don't know this scheme would have come, actually. So government would have thought 4 years is good cycle to bottom, clear the small, under the limit, you clear the backlog completely. And at the same time, and where you have to really withdraw settle the cases, where you are not sure what the court will decide. Here you need a certainty. Here you compromise. Okay, I have a risk. I'll pay some taxes, 50% taxes to the government, and I'll get a waiver of interest. I'll get a waiver of penalty. I'll have no litigation costs. I have no contingent liability. I have no uncertainty, nothing like that. So that way is not really everybody waits if you do not know the mind of the government, actually. But bringing it is the interesting thing. And why I want to tell you, the last scheme of 201, actually 2020, there were 2.7 crore of tax demand in numbers. And there were 35 lakh crore which was being disputed on the various legal forums. Just imagine.
35 lakh crores is the amount in dispute.
What's in dispute? I'm giving the figure. Let me tell you a very interesting thing also, basically. How much money the government got in taxes in the previous VSV one? Government got 54,000 crores in terms of settlement is a good amount of taxes. It's not a small money of taxes. 54,000 crores was done, and they resolved nearly 1.4 lakhs cases. But you know what happens if there's a very interesting government book, basically, which is issued on an annual basis, where you'll be surprised that more than 90% of the dispute cannot be, are not traceable. Notice may not be served, the people may not be alive, the business would have closed down, people would have left the country. So many reasons could be there, basically. And the amount may be insignificant. So what you're doing is you're making the system, clogging the system. Here, what we are doing is basically you hygiene the system, actually. 54,000 crores is not a bad thing. Because of the amount of dispute, more than 90%, as per the government data, is not realizable. So government introduced last year a very interesting thing. If you have a tax demand of less than 1 lakh rupees, so government is going to write it off. I don't know the exact analysis. Government says small demand, write them off. So what happens? These goes in millions of people go out of the system. So when you hear this 35 lakhs crore and so many figures, they are small demand. Government will clean the system, actually. They were in a manual way, now you become electronic. You do not know where they stand. There was a complete paper trail, now you have electronic trail, where the PAN number is located, where the SSC is located, a host of issues, actually. So first scheme was successful. Second will depend, actually. But yes, I think people have been deliberately talking about it because it will go into steam from 1st October 2024.
So basically, one for the viewer, I'm clarifying, you're saying in the last VIVAD se VISHWAS scheme, 54,000 crores the government.
Yes, collected.
Do you think this year it will be even more higher from October onwards with this scheme?
See, I tell you one thing, people they don't want long litigation. It's expensive. It's the value of money which is locked in. It is uncertainty there. Anything can happen. Supreme Court may take the different view and their voters, what you'll be waiting in the between. So you compromise. Let's pay so much. Let's get a certainty. Let me out of it. So I personally believe people in more and more is becoming cautious to get rid of all these nuisance value around it. You want to concentrate on your business actually. So they are there, but until the amount is big, until there's a legal issue which has an effect in perpetuity. So you may not like to withdraw it. It's a strict legal issue, which has a very significant in terms of cost, in terms of tax effect, in terms of business viability, in terms of cash flow, in terms of money lock-in, in terms of tax refund, so many things. So in all those cases, if you see that, everybody looks for certainty. Everybody looks for faster resolution. Everybody looks for closure of tax matter. You want to concentrate your energy more on doing business rather than prolonging on this. Yes, people will be looking forward in that.
I want to ask you, in Vivad Se Vishwas, do tax demands on major issues where demands are in excess of say 100 crore, 150 crore, 200 crore, even those big complex matters get settled, or only the simple matters get settled in such schemes?
So what happens, I tell you, is when you start the scheme, so there could be two options. Either in the past, the department, tax office would have won the appeal at the appellate level, or the taxpayer would have won it basically. So when you have tax, they say if the tax department has won the appeal, right? So what happens? The government says your tax liability is 100. Okay, the government has gone. You have gone in an appeal because the tax department won the matter. So government says they can lose the case, and the private body will spend money more on the legal charges, have the best of the people to do that. The government may feel they will lose the matter. So government said, pay me 50% of the taxes. You have uncertainty, I have uncertainty. I'll wait.
So this 50%, sorry to interrupt, this 50% is excluding the interest. The interest won't be charged.
I'm correct. Interest and penalty both will be waived off.
Okay.
Both will be waived off. And more or less, I'm not going to the nuances, a little bit of percent here. If I have won the case and the department has gone in appeal, now take the reverse position. I may lose the case. Again. Here also the government has made it, you pay around 50%. There, and okay, fine, I'll pay 50%. I'll not pay the interest. My litigation costs, uncertainty, for long period of delays, long period of holding time. Actually, we do not know what to do in the next subsequent years. Whether we have to make a provision for taxation, not make a provision for taxation. Is there uncertainty? Is the law evolving changes? Is the jurisprudence change worldwide? So there can be so many things actually. So people say, let's settle it, pay 50% and get rid of it. And be happy.
That is a very interesting comment. So basically, you say a large number of cases stuck in court will be solved in Vivad Se Vishwas, as taxpayers will get an opportunity where their interest and penalty will be waived off, and on the disputed amount they can get up to a 50% discount.
Yes.
What would be your advice to people who have such disputes? Even if they have a chance of winning, they fight it out or they settle quickly and move on?
So what happens is, what our advice is there, and when journey like clients come to us, we evaluate the whole situation. Why should I pay 50%? If I won the case at the commercial level, I won the case at ITT level, I won the case at High Court level, I've already settled all the positions, my arguments, my lawyers, everything. I've done everything actually. Why I need to pay 50%? I may revisit the position. I have waited for so many years. I'll wait for another 2-3 years. So here, and then you have another thing is this: you evaluate what is the risk of losing, how the court cases are being turned, how the globally at times in international tax, globally the scene is changing so much. How does any cases coming any part of the world can have a bearing on you on the same or similar grounds actually? So then holistically, fairly, dispassionately, you evaluate it. And then at the Supreme Court level, you may decide it's a big case, I don't want to pay 50%. And you've already paid part of the money to the government because under the statutory norm, you've already paid the government. And all your advisor says, no, you're going to win the case. The question of why should we pay 50%? Now here the other side is this, you say you have a balanced chance. Nobody can guarantee you the court outcome. Right? So I think we should pay 50% and get out of it. So here is a balance call, trusted advisors, fair advice coming out of it. And what do you feel? What is the precedence? What is the jurisprudence? What is the global scenario? And what the law says. Is it too aggressive? Take one view. If it's not too aggressive, take the other view.
Okay, so it's case-to-case basis, and depending on the condition of the client, is in the businessman, it will differ. This advice will differ.
Yes, yes.
Your final comment on this initiative by the Finance Ministry and the government of India and the income tax department?
Let me tell you one thing, Tarun. No one likes disputes in the tax office. If you have it as a part of a process, which is healthy process, you don't want long dispute. You don't want long tenure dispute, actually. Because in the meantime, if you're going to lose a case, suppose the interest and penalty will hit you very badly. The interest will be 12%, your penalty can go up from 50 to 200% or from 100 to 300% depending on the year it was involved with. So the basic is no one likes it. It's a good chance if you've done a frivolous litigation, right? And you believe it, no, your chance is not going to win it. Get out of it, get a peace of mind. Don't take what you call an aggressive position unnecessarily. But if you've gone through the whole journey, actually, I think then, and you're at a level where there will be no cash outgo, where there's no contingent liability, where there's no risk on you, basically, I think then you can fairly take a call. Yes, we will prefer not litigate. We prefer litigating it. So there is not a hard and fast rule. There is a case-to-case evaluation, which your trusted advisor must do, guide you, which you want to end. There are so many corporates, they say we want to end litigation. I don't want a litigation. But only thing, please remember, this is everybody, this is not going to end litigation. This is going to end litigation for that year only. That litigation can continue because it has not been resolved in that year. It has been settled only. Only the resolution has been done. So that is, again, you have to bear in mind. If it's a one-time issue, you may litigate it. But if it's a perpetual issue, you may say, no, I'm going to fight it. But if it's a very small, frivolous issue, let's pay it, get off it, is not worth it.
Point well taken. Thank you for explaining the whole initiative of Vivad se Vishwas and specific points for taxpayers and businessmen in detail. In fact, we would like to revisit this. You want to make a point before we end?
One point. One thing very important. This scheme is not applicable if there was a search in anybody's premises. There was what we call income tax raid or income tax search and seizure. So they say here the government has raided you, the tax authorities, you are not entitled to avail this beneficial part of the scheme. If there have been undisclosed foreign assets, foreign income, no, you will not get a benefit. Any prosecution, anything in such cases, those scheme will not be applicable for those because the law has acted against you. So you're not entitled for this beneficial provisions.
Okay, point. Thanks for clarifying that point. Indeed, an important point, not applicable for people who have been searched or raided or have foreign assets which the government is probing. We will like to revisit this topic with you, say another fortnight or so when the scheme is well underway. There will be feedback. You will also get, I'm sure, by that time, and we could do in a sense, a monthly analysis of how this initiative of the government works. I appreciate that you could make time and join us on this very important scheme of the Ministry of Finance and the Income Tax Department. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Rakesh Nangia, who's chairman of Nangia Anderson, explained you the salient features and the impact of the Vivad se Vishwas scheme, a scheme of the government which aims at dispute resolution and easing the burden on the taxpayer by getting him off dispute. Appreciate you for watching the video. Thank you so very much for joining.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.